So this could be a word problem that deals with percents. Okay? So I have 58 students in my 101 sections, and at least 12 students have at least one pet. It's probably really more than that. I just made that number up. So 58 students, 12 have at least one pet. What percent of students have at least one pet? Well, remember, percent means out of 100. Okay? So if I had exactly 100 students, and maybe like 30 of them had pets, 30 out of 100 students would have pets, so 30%. Well, I don't have 100 students. I have 58. This is sort of why we talked about proportion, because one way you can figure out the answer to this is by doing a proportion where one of the fractions has a denominator of 100. So I have 12 students with pets out of total of 58 students. I just asked how many students would have pets if I had exactly 100 students. I don't know. So I put an X there. The answer to this is what we're going to get when we solve this proportion. Okay, so 12 of my 58 students have pets. Notice that this would simplify. It might be easier to simplify too, just because it'll make the numbers smaller, but I'm not going to. If I had 100 students, how many of them would have pets? Well, you cross multiply. Then we get x by itself by dividing by 58. So 1200 divided by 58, 20.69, I rounded that. So, what is our answer? Well, remember, so this x would be 20.69, so the x was in the numerator. Remember that percent means out of 100. So if you have a fraction that has a number on the top and a 100 on the bottom in the denominator, the answer is just whatever the number is on the top with a percent after it, with the percent symbol after it. So 20.69% of my students. It's a little bit more than 1/5, right? So, because 20% would be 1 over 5. So the answer is 20.69%. Okay, what if, now I know I'm just making up these numbers, so they're not going to come out nice. Like this didn't come out to be exactly 20% or 21%. What if I changed it around a little bit and said that, how do I want to word this? 40% of my students have pets. So this is a totally different problem. 40% of my students have pets. This might be in another class. 40% of my students have pets. There are 20 students. 40% of my students have pets in a certain class. There are 20 students with pets in this class. How many students are in the class? So let's read that out loud again. 40% of my students have pets in a certain class. There are 20 students with pets in this class? How many students are in the class? So it's going to be just like the problem I did before, where you can possibly set up a proportion to figure it out. But what we know and what we don't know in this problem are different. In the last problem, we were trying to figure out what percent of the students have pets. Here we know it's 40%. So it's a little bit different. So you can still solve this by setting up a proportion. Over here we know that 40% have pets. So we're going to have a 40 over 100. This is how many people have pets, so that's 20. We don't know how many total people are in the class. That's what we're trying to figure out. So in other words, 40% of the whole have pets. We know that 20 actual people have pets. We want to know what the whole amount of people in the class is. So once again, once you set up the proportion, it's just math after that. The word problem part is knowing how to set it up. So you just have to think about it. You just have to say, well, what goes where? That's kind of, you just have to, like I said, think about it. These problems are still good to estimate your answer, because if you estimate and then set it up wrong, your answer won't make sense. So if you estimated a certain number before you got the answer, and then your answer was quite a bit different, you probably can realize that you set it up wrong. Alright, so cross multiply, we get 40x equals 2,000. Divide by 40. So that x represents how many students are in the class. So there's 50 students in the class. Does that make sense? Once you get an answer, you can check to see if your answer makes sense. If there's 20 people with pets and there's 50 people in class, that would be, if you did this on a calculator, 20 divided by 50 is 0.4. 0.4 is a percent, is 40%, which makes sense because 40% of the students have pets. I shouldn't say it makes sense, I should say it matches. It works, it's the right answer. So the answer is 50. There's 50 students in class. Let's do one more word problem. We're going to do more than one, but I'm only going to do one more on this particular video. That way the video won't be that long. And I'll just make another video with one or two more. Probably one or two more. So let's say your friend makes $2,000 a month, gross pay. Your friend, not me, I don't make that much money. Gross means before taxes are taken out. I don't know why they call it gross. It doesn't have anything to do with being gross. It has something to do probably with the word gross, like meaning 144 or something. I don't know. It's an old word. Look it up in the dictionary. So your friend makes $2,000 a month gross pay. Their net pay, net, which another word for net or phrase is take home. $1,400 a month. So they get paid $2,000 a month, but after the taxes and everything taken out, their paycheck is only $1,400. They only get paid once a month. Maybe they're in the military. What percent of the money they make do they actually get to keep? I'm going to abbreviate. What percent of the money they make do they keep? So they really make $2,000, but they only actually get $1,400 of it. So you could pause the video here if you want to try to figure it out before I do it. This is another one that you can do by solving a proportion. Okay, so you already paused it and figured it out on your own. I'm going to do it now. So they get to keep 1,400 of 2,000. What is that out of 100? If they were actually only making $100 a month gross, how much would they be taking home? Well, once again, you just cross multiply, so this is going to be 2,000. So divide by 2,000, both sides. You get x equals 70. So in other words, 70 out of 100. So if they got paid $100 a month, they would get to keep $70. So 70 out of 100, what does out of 100 mean? It means percent, right? So the answer is 70%. Notice, if it asked you what percent of the money do they get to keep, it wants the answer as a percent. So 70%. Alright, so I'm going to do a couple more problems, but they'll be on the next video.